All right, so in this video, what I'm going to be demonstrating is how to install Fey Runner into a VTT. This VTT will be IronVault, which runs within Obsidian. I plan on making other videos for other VTTs. This is the one that comes with, or doesn't come with it, but in the example play documentation, I describe how to install this, and I want to make a video guide that goes along with it. We have a setup guide for IronVault, and you can see that there is a link for Obsidian here. If you go to Obsidian, if you're not familiar with it, this is just a free note-taking app. There is a paid option where you can sync your notes between different devices, and I think it has some other features and stuff, but we'll just be using the free version, nothing really special with it. Runs on a bunch of different platforms. I'm currently on a Windows platform, so you can see that here. I oftentimes use Linux, and so I don't remember which one I use. I think I use AppImage usually when I'm on Linux, but any of those should work. Mac works fine. I also have it on my Android. I've tested it there and it works fine there as well. So feel free to use it for that. Just download it. It has a bunch of features, hot links, things like that. You have these whole graph systems, which I like to use for making my nodes when I'm, doing my hacking stuff. And so they're very easy to do. For Ironsworn, if you're playing those, what a lot of people do is they use the canvas items to drop down maps and then write on the maps. So we'll be using Obsidian, and we're going to be going over the current existing documentation here on how to get this set up to use the Fey runners. Now, Fey runners has all of its data already ported over to data sworn. It's basically a giant JSON file that has all the rules for the different Ironsworn things. That's ideally the source of truth that I'll be using for most of the VTTs. I like IronVault because IronVault allows me to use the data sworn repo and then select what I think they call them play sets. So I can say like, oh, I want to use the starforged moves and also Fey Runner's moves. That's totally doable within IronVault and fairly easy compared to the other VTTs to set up. And while there is a pull request for the main data sworn repo at this time, they haven't accepted it. So right now, Fey Runners is not part of the master branch, and so you have to get it from my repo. But the nice thing about this method is it'll always be up to date, even if the main repo is behind. So this is what we're going to go over. And so the first thing is we'll load up an we'll load up an Obsidian setting and kind of go through that. All right, so this is Obsidian. You won't necessarily be in this screen when you first load. This is just an old thing from testing that I have up and running. What we're going to do is we're going to create a new one. And so I'm going to go here, say manage vaults. This is the one I was just testing, so I'm going to remove this from the list. Okay, you'll usually have this screen when you first start. You're going to create a vault. And a vault is just a collection of your sessions. You can have more than one Ironsworn session within a vault. And so we'll just give it a name. We'll call it like example vault. And then I will create a location for it. Now I just called it vault folder, so we can kind of see that the vault name example, we'll put it in vault folder. You can definitely make them the same, but I made them different just so we can kind of see where these pieces of information are used. And then when we say create, this is the new one. You get this default welcome screen. You get this graph view that's just kind of there. And this is just this file. It's just showing the links. I use the graph view, like I mentioned, to create nodes, and the nodes would be different things I'm bouncing through in the network. So it makes a great graph. And there are ways to set this up that it also does colors for your corporate network and your government network, which is great. But for now, we're going to close this, and we're going to close this one. And what we got to do is we got to get our homebrew set up, which is our Fey runners. So to do that, what we need to do is we need to create a folder in here. And so if we create a folder called homebrew, And so it is, I clicked on new folder, it said homebrew. And then what we're going to do is we need to save the JSON to that. And so we can go back to the documentation, which links to my Git. And in here you can see this is the GitHub. So if we go right to the GitHub, it brings you to this screen. Now you can either click on raw and then say, save as, wherever that is. Oh, here it is, save as, and that will save it. Or if you want, the other way you can do this is you can go to these dots in the corner and then say download. And then when you download it, it'll go to your download folder. And at that point, you can copy it into the folder we just created, or you can, when you're downloading, depending on how your browser's set up, it can, if it prompts you where to save it to the folder. So in our case, we have Obsidian, we have the Vault folder. This is the example Vault. So you saw this is what I called it. And then example Vault was the name. Here is our homebrew folder. And then here is where we're going to put our JSON. All right, and so once you have your JSON here, you can go back to Obsidian. And then we will go and click on this gear icon in the bottom left. And so what we have to do is we have to enable our plugins. So go to community plugins. You will turn on the community plugins. They're off by default. And then when you turn on, you will then want to go browse. We need to go find the IronVault. Let's just ignore Iron. There's IronVault. We'll grab that. We have to install it. And so this is going to download the plugin. You can see from the screenshot that it has nice dice and stuff that roll. It's very cool. You will want to enable it. And then that's just about it. We're almost done. We have the plugin there. If we close this screen, we'll have this community plugins IronVault folder, which we'll click on. We need to enable the homebrew content. Under homebrew, we turn that on. The homebrew content folder is where your folder is. Now, if you followed the directions and you created a homebrew folder, it's already set up. You don't need to do anything. You can just go ahead and close this. All right, you should be done. You do have this welcome to IronVault. It points to documentation, things like that to teach you how to use it. First thing we need to do is we need to create a campaign. So if you click on, let me do that again. Click on this little section over here, show IronVault commands. And the bottom one's IronVault create a campaign. So we'll create one. This is going to be your campaign, and it could be for different things. You can make one for Ironsworn, you can make one for Starforged. It can all live in the same vault. We'll just call this Faerunner example. This will be our campaign. It's going to create a folder called Faerunner example. We're not going to use Starforged. We're going to use custom. So that turns that off, and we have to configure our custom. Now here, this is your custom playset, and this is where you define the rules of what parts you want from different books. And so this takes it out of the JSON file, and there's a syntax for this. Now in the documentation for the example play, I include the content, and we can just click and paste it. If we go down here, we have the create a campaign. This is this bold section right here. This is what you want to copy. Control C. Then I am going to paste this into this section. So it's just saying we're going to use Starforge rules package as our main parent package. And then anything in the Faerunners class we're going to kind of use. And so if we want to test this, we can go into search and let's pick something like disconnect. And disconnect has a checkbox next to it. Now if I just make DISC, you can see that's discover site, make discover. These are from other Ironsworn related areas. So this is from Delve and whatnot, but they have X's next to them because that's not part of Starforge and it's not part of Faerunners, but disconnect is. And so this is just here just to make sure your scoping is correct. And then once you're done, you say select, and that's pretty much it. And when you say create, this will build it all out for you. Now, if you turn on scaffold campaign, this is up to you. It's a little bit, it's there to help you, and it creates a bunch of default folders, but it can be a little bit out of sync, I think, for how the rulebook works. If you've already built your character and stuff, it won't be that big of a deal. But if you haven't built any characters yet, you don't have your troops yet, just keep in mind that some of this is, you might want to go back and re-edit, which you can do. But we're going to turn it on so I can kind of show you how it works. So scaffolding is on. I'm going to say create. This is our campaign. That's where you can have a different one here. And this we'll just, this is for our character though. So we're taking this character, we're going to create for the Fae Runner example. Now, I want to probably go in and spend more time on a character, and I don't have one I'm copying over. So for right now, I'm just going to say placeholder character. And then I'll create this file name. We can change this later. It puts it into the characters folder, and that's fine. Okay, and so what this does, we now have a folder over here. This is from the scaffolding, and it creates all the clocks and folders for factions. These are all just folders you can store things in. So very useful. I do like it. And then if you go into characters, you can see our placeholder character. I think, just to verify, you can see that the current rig, so this is definitely a Fae Runner character. Let's go ahead and set some stats for this person, just so if we do any examples, the roles will make sense. So I'm just putting, so I'm not going to spend any time on this right now, but we're just going to put some stats in. We need to make our truths. If you want to do your truths, you already have them. You can just select them, or you can go through and kind of pick them, like, oh, what's this one? Read it, whatever, it's fine. Or you can roll it randomly. You can see the dice come out. There we go. This ended up being the same, so it didn't really matter. But here, let's roll this one, so we can definitely see it work. So 77, and then, you know, passes by the memory. And you just click save when you're ready, and it will kind of like save them to your truths. And this will build up your world. The other thing I want to point out is because the game is narrative and you're going to be writing up a story, one of the best things about using Obsidian for this is it's a note-taking app. So if you go to, say, I think it's under journals, yeah, there's your session 0. Obviously make another folder for session 1, etc. But it's just a note. You can start typing whatever you want here. It's the beginning of a great adventure. We tap into the network, right? And there's a system here for rolling dice, doing your moves, all built in, and it will copy that data into your notes. To bring up an easy to view version of this, we can bring up a sidebar. So we'll click on the IronVault. I can't say that word very well. Little quick command things, and we want to say show sidebar. And that brings us up. So these are all the oracles. There's a lot of oracles in Fae Runners, and they're all here, and you can just search and find the ones you need. There's a move section, which is color-coded as well. You can look at your exploration moves, and there's jacking in. So for this one, you would jack in. The rule for jacking in is really just moving your information from your starforged character into your Fae Runner. Assuming you're doing that, you can just play Fae Runners without starforged. But if you're having, you know, your character's all messed up from flying around and they're doing some things, they're trying to hack into some space door or something like that, then you're going to want to copy this over to their digital online character, some of the stats. And that's just saying what this does. And since there's no role, there's really nothing that we need to do to include this into our session. But say, I don't know, say we want to map a route, just to show you what this looks like. We'll click map routes, and you can see it shows your stats up here. It also gives you a description of, like, for instance, we would probably want to use edge because that's their best stat, and that is the map node we would travel quickly, and we would roll on plus edge. And here's your results for a strong hit, a weak hit, and then a miss. All right, and so if we want to do it, you simply just click on this. If there's a modifier, we would select it. There isn't for this case. We're just mapping a node, and it rolls everything for you. So we rolled a 6 with our edges 3, so we have a 9. So we definitely beat 1. We tied the other, so that is a weak hit. So we got 1 checkbox and 1 X. And if you forget what that does, you can always click it again. It gives you a little highlight link, and you can see that for a weak hit, we either have to sacrifice power, or we roll on the node encounter oracle. So if you were to sacrifice power, it just tells you that you would just subtract power from it. At the time of this recording, I don't believe this oracle works. From clicking on it, yeah, you get like an error. But the node encounter oracle you could just search for. So let's go ahead and do that just to show it. Oh, and I do want to point out that this is already in our notes. So, you know, this shows your role, and if you wanted to, you could just start typing about it. You know, well, we'll type it when we find out, but, like, you know, we connect to our first node. And then let's say that was, I think we're doing like miscellaneous node. So if you want to roll on that, it is it'll do the flip the role as a vending machine or insecure workstation. So let's go with the insecure workstation. And so it just puts it in there for you. So we have the node discovery, miscellaneous node, we found an insecure workstation. And so you can just kind of quickly go back and forth, have a history of what you rolled, the results, fill in the details of it. If you want to, pull more data, it can automatically copy things over. Works really well with things. I do like this VTT plugin system, and they're actively working on it. But that's how you get it set up and how you can get started with Fey runners in IronVault. If you have any questions, either post them into the comments section, or you can go and reach out to my itch.io website and ping me there as well. I will try to do some more videos in the future on some of the other VTTs and show you some of the things you may run into, some difficulties, like where they excel and where they kind of fail on some of these third-party systems. So I hope you enjoyed.